GM, GA, GE, wherever you may be. There was a massive Ape CryptoPunk sale this week. It was 2,500 Ethereum. We'll talk about what that's done to the punks market, what's going to be happening at the other side this weekend, and more of that to come. Welcome, Tyler. So today, last we left, we were talking about the potential of art blocks this week, and they've hit well. We've seen that massive punk sale, but also punks just in general have continued to run since the weekend. So how are you feeling right now based on this week?
I'm feeling good, Lou. Cautiously optimistic, feeling bullish. We've got some bullish signs in the market right now. We have a fourth highest all-time CryptoPunk sale. We have art blocks, curated auctions going out at top price, and a few other sets have been doing well. Liquidity isn't there, but besides that, liquidity aside, I mean, this feels like the start of a potential bull run. So I'm excited. It's been a good week.
Yeah, we've seen this happen, I don't know, at least twice now, where this it was just like a concept, the punk trickle down effect. And I feel like it'll be interesting to see if that happens this time because of the market, just general macro. We saw inflation numbers come out yesterday, and I don't necessarily think that led to being bullish from a macro sense. So to me, it's going to be interesting to see if this set of punk buys, maybe we find out something from Yuga this weekend that benefits the punks. I think a lot of people just assume at this point that there's something like that whenever you see a run in these high level sets. So we'll see if that's part of it. But let's talk a little about what it's done, because as you can see, like the leader this week by far has been CryptoPunk. So it's not even just the $2,500 sale. Like we're still seeing it's less than, but it's almost 200 sales in the punks, which generally we don't see that many. I mean, even look at Bored Apes. There's only 50 Bored Ape sales on the week. It's about the same as Mutant Ape Yacht Club, which are twice the count. And to me, I think it really shows that people are going back in on punks and looking for this sort of long-term. It's a safer play than a lot of other projects out there. Something like a Goblin Town's also in this top 10 here, but generally it's going to have higher upside, higher downside as well. So I think people might be somewhat moving towards these safer plays like a CryptoPunk, which doesn't matter what the market's going to do. It's more of a bet on Ethereum, a bet on NFTs in general. And I think people that are, if you're buying an Ape Punk for 2,500 ETH, you're not planning on selling it in a week. So do you think that there have been a decent amount of these buys that are above floor? Do you think people are buying the punks right now, trying to ride this wave, thinking, "Oh, it's going back to 100"? Or do you think people are trying to park their ETH in something that they might find safer than just in ETH itself?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. So, when crypto crashed, 6 weeks ago now, I think there was general sentiment out there and real concern that NFTs were just going to die. Yeah. And granted, we still don't have a huge sample size yet, but it seems like the NFT market is doing just fine in ETH terms. Of course, it's down significantly in US dollars, but it doesn't feel like a market that's going to zero right now. So I think people have seen that as a vote of confidence. And then couple that with repricing these NFTs in US dollar terms. I mean, punks, the floor is 78 ETH right now. That's $78,000. The floor was 500,000 last summer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people still view this as a relatively cheap entry. And now we have continuing bullish signs for the punks market. So we had the 2,500 ETH Vape Ape punk sale. So 2.62 million. It's tied for the fourth all-time highest. ETH sale for punks. Generally, what we've seen with the high-end sales is it typically drags the floor up with it. I think an interesting trend, if you look at the recent sales, and there's been some solid recent punk sales as well, is now we're seeing that the good mid-tier traits are starting to
Right.
move. Specifically the 3Ds. The 3D punks are flying. The trait floor is 142 ETH. I think the male 3D floor is like 165. So essentially 2x the punks floor. And then today we've got another VR punks, or a few VR punks selling. So the VRs are starting to move. So those more attractive mid tiers are starting to get repriced. And I don't know, it feels destined, programmed for the punks floor to get back to 100, maybe before the end of the summer.
Yeah, and I think that's people that are buying in right now, I think, are having that mindset as well. And it's interesting that you mentioned the 3D floor, and potentially at this point, the most famous 3D punk is Richard, who I think it was 2,500 ETH that he turned down, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he is going to be, I don't know if you've seen this, but he's starting to plan out a little project based on 3D glasses. It's going to be like a IRL connection with Web3. Not sure when it's going to be coming out, but I wonder if people are taking that into account and potentially trying to buy those because, a month from now or whatever, when that drop happens, maybe it'll bring more eyes onto it. Not sure if that's necessarily alpha. I'm not sure how many people who are going to watch this stream are in the market to buy a 3D ape or 3D punk just in general. We did see that 3D ape with the cowboy hat get a 2,500.01 bid on it as
Mm-hmm.
well, which we are talking in a side chat that we thought that was way too cheap for what it would go for just with those two added decently high price traits. The thing with the Ape Punk that sold is I don't think it was a floor one. I'm not sure necessarily how to determine what a floor one would be, but I feel like
Mm-hmm.
the vape trait itself, I would assume, isn't floor, but aesthetically, it's not the best ape either. So I don't know. I feel like, do you think that price for it was reasonable? I think if it sold at 1,800, it wouldn't have been that great, but I feel like 2,500 is reasonable to say, like, okay, that's a lot that they paid for it. It seems relatively priced accurately, at least in ETH terms. But do you think that price was reasonable enough for people to be bullish?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. How could you not be bullish on a 2,500 ETH sale? And I think still a lot of the market participants still view everything in ETH terms. And
Mhm.
in ETH terms, this was a huge sale. And what were the bids on it? It had what,
It was
1,800?
1822,
Didn't,
but there was
didn't
more
take it.
than one. Yeah, there was
Yeah, and they're going to
five
multiple
apes.
parties, which I think. So yeah, we see the purple hat had a 2,200 ETH. This police hat
Yeah,
ape had
those
a
three.
1,800. The cowboy 22, now 2,500. People aren't taking these bids. Like, that is crazy.
Yeah.
So like the floor for punk apes is 2,500 ETH right now. Whether or not the vape ape is like a floor ape, there's probably a few that are a little bit more basic or maybe worse, but I feel like they're all just in such a high tier that there's probably not, a huge swing other than like the most elite ones, like the hoodie ape is of course a really elite one. Looks like it's for sale for 5,500. That would really shake things up if that one moves. And then I think the Cowboy 3D is one of the sickest apes
Yeah.
or punks in the whole
That,
set.
those
Probably
are
better than
probably the
some of the
top two,
yeah.
I think. And
But
it's interesting because of those three, like I wonder this. Do you think the buyer considered those the three floor apes? So that's why those are the ones that they chose, or maybe he was already in connection with those those people to buy or something like that. Because to me, like the police hat one, I think aesthetically of the three would have been mine that I would want.
Mm.
Vape, I think, would sell for more in the future, but I'd rather aesthetically have the cop hat one. The purple hat, the eye patch just doesn't do it for me, I guess. I feel like that kind of takes a little away from the trait, but maybe there are some people that are interested in the eye patch. I do the G Money ones with the beanie, but there's 4 of those in the ape set. So like
Yeah,
that's a common trait in apes. So I think that's kind of part of it too, where is this the only one that was a vape ape? I think
it
there might be
is.
one other one, or the other
There's
one's a
one
cigarette.
vape. Yeah, here, I'll try to zoom in a
Yeah.
little bit.
So
One vape, one smoking.
in that sense, it's probably not a floor one
Yeah,
because it's the
definitely
only
not.
ape that has that trait. And
These
just
two feel like
vaping.
these two feel like the most floor, maybe like just
Mhm.
the do rag and the bandana.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There's 4 purple hats, and
Yeah.
there's
Right. So
several
like
with
the top
beanies too.
hat one is probably, I would guess that one would sell at a premium as well because
Mm-hmm.
it's like the rarest. Punk also has one. I think that leads to it. The do-rag ones, though, those are tough because I think because bigger names have had those and have sold those or bought them. I think doesn't Snoop Dogg have one of those? And then the one that was famously sold off through a Twitter Dutch auction was also had a do-rag. So I feel like that trait
Yeah,
might be a little better, but there's 4 of them in this set, so that takes a little away from it as well. So
it
you
is the last I'll say here. Maybe we can get back, but the zombies are catching higher and higher bids too now.
That's what I was gonna say is let's look at the zombies real quick because there is one up for sale. That one for 1.35. I would not be surprised if that one sold. Of the 4 that are listed there, like it has do-rag and cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if that one sold, especially with what's been happening more recently. But I don't know. Do you think any of those are underpriced, or do you think that looks like a reasonable price? Because these are all, and we talked about this last week, these are all still significantly higher than gold bored apes have gone for recently.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they feel correctly priced, but not like priced to move. Like I don't think any of this board is like live right now.
mhm. Do you
But if
think
you
under 1,000 would be though? Like under a
absolutely
thousand, how quickly would that sell?
within a
Hours?
week, maybe like look at the
Ye-
bids. I mean, we've got of course this is a great zombie with the 3D, so maybe put it aside. But this is a relatively floor zombie. It's got the basic glasses and the dildo head, which is kind of a negative trait to some
Yeah,
collectors. That's got an 800 bid on it. I wouldn't be surprised to see the 800 taken for that one. But then, like, you look at the sales last summer, zombies 1.5, 1.6, 1.3, 2K for the Elite 3D. I mean, those are big numbers. It was last summer. It was peak mania, but guess what? ETH is 1/3 the price. So you could even those
yeah,
numbers right now is still a 60% discount from
yeah.
last summer, and that's why I think the numbers are reasonable. And I won't be surprised at all if we see a 4-figure ETH zombie sale here in the summer.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. And we see there was one, the most recent zombie sale was for 825 ETH 3 weeks ago. That was before this run though. So you'd think it would go for higher. Like you said, there are some bigger bids. There's that one that we saw last night come in for the red hair that's for 2,000. Um,
Is it
and
for 2,000?
oh, does that just say 2?
It's
Oh,
just
okay.
it's just two. I'm
It's just
surprised
for
it's
2.
on the leaderboard.
Okay,
Okay.
never mind.
Yeah.
That's just they just put one in then. Um, okay, so yeah, like as you said, there are a couple in that 800 range. One for 700, one for 800. And the one that is listed at 1.35, we see there's a 725 bid on it. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that specific zombie punk sold within the next week for around 1,000, maybe in the 900s. But I feel like those two are going to come together potentially in order to sell it. Maybe they sell it, it's number 1190. Maybe that's what it gets relisted for. Who knows? But yeah, I think these higher end sales are what helps give people confidence in buying the floor as well. So it's almost at 80 ETH floor. You know what happens? Like we had a 2-3 week period not too long ago where we were talking about, can the Bored Apes flip punks, and it was a lock that punks would not flip Bored Apes again once Yuga came into play. Now I don't know, like it could flip back. We'll see what happens in the next few weeks here. But yeah, let's talk a little about what Yuga is doing, because they have their demo this weekend, and a lot of this stuff has been getting bought up more recently. As you see, like the next three on that list are Bored Apes, Mutants, and then the other deed. We saw a little run on the Kennel Club earlier in the week as well. So what do you think with Yuga this coming weekend? What are your current thoughts on the other side? Do you expect, because I personally expect some sort of announcement this weekend, whether it's about what the next thing is going to be, whether it's these mecha dogs that were causing the Kennel Club to run. What's sort of your current thinking on the other side in Yuga?
Yeah, it's been an interesting week. So it feels like a chop week for the Yuga ecosystem for the most part, at least with the floor action. Volume on the apes and the mutants is up 13, 18%. So pretty much even with last week. The Bored Ape floor up 6 or 7% at 99. Still hasn't gotten through that 100 ETH barrier. It doesn't indicate to me that people are like super hyped that there's going to be a mega announcement. Like the way the Yuga ecosystem markets move, we saw this with the dog last weekend, right? When people think a big announcement is coming, the markets move and they move fast. The dogs ran from 6 ETH to 9 ETH in just a few hours. Now have since come back down 15% to 7.75. So I think that's an interesting kind of aspect of the price action this week to look at. But on the flip side, I don't know if this is tied to the demo or more tied to just the general elite collectibles market right now. But we're seeing some really nice high-end sales. So just in the last 24 hours, 134 ETH on a pizza ape, 130 on a multicolored grin, 131 here, 170 on the gold shirt, 140 on the king crown, 180 on the king crown. So some serious mid-tier sales that are kind of dragging the market up, or at least I think that they might be front running a market run up a little bit. So those are good to see. I think you're pretty happy with those as a BAYC holder. This Saturday is definitely a wild card. I think there's a lot of expectation for how this demo is going to go. People thinking there's an announcement. A lot of people that I'm talking to have been really impressed with the tech in the other side, and the ability to have spatial audio, the ability to have multiple people being able to talk. If they can pull that off, a lot of people are really bullish. I don't know how that translates to the NFTs, but it seems like they've got a real product potentially here.
Yeah, and I'm obviously like I don't have the demo. I haven't been in there personally, but long term with this, are they expecting, because the other thing that has popped up as well, and we saw like Cryptodes move a little bit, Cool Cats a little bit, like people are talking about the other ones in that trailer. I don't think WoW got too far up, sits in the fours, but like for this to be a game long term, like it can't only have these 30, I guess 40,000 avatars that are BAYC mutants, and then the kennels, and then so they're also going to have Codas. People are wondering, are Codas? I think their floor is around 21 right now. Codas have moved a little bit. They got to like 16, is I want to say, but yeah, like, is there going to be info on Codas? Because last time people thought there was going to be info on that, we saw massive sweeps. Yeah, so it's around 20 ETH for Coda right now. I also think Heman has a good point on buy ApeCoin. We could see this is something that comes up a lot. Maybe ApeCoin does a little move this week, and that's the way to get the exposure. It's under $5 right now. I don't think it ever got under 3, but it was in the 3s for a little bit. So that's not the worst play either. Maybe instead of buying an other D plot for 3 ETH, you throw 3 ETH worth into ApeCoin and hope it goes to even like, I don't know, $6, $7 or something. The problem with that is I'm not sure if there's still going to be a reason to use Ape within the game just yet. That's the only concern I have with buying Ape. But I think just the hype and people are going to be like, oh, I can't spend 6 ETH, 7 ETH on even just like a kennel dog, and that's probably the cheapest way to get into the avatar side of the game. It'll be interesting to see if we hear something about mecha dogs. That was just one thing that hopped off recently. But what do you think about ApeCoin? Do you think that's something worth trying to make a play at?
So Ape definitely has its own set of risks. I think it will absolutely move, on any major announcement from the team. But now you're trading against a different group of people, like crypto Twitter, CT, like those folks, are in the mix, and you have
People that are buying
shorting and
tokens.
longing
Yeah.
and perps versus your more traditional NFT buying pool, right? And NFTs can't be shorted, right? Versus ApeCoin. So there's definitely more factors at play. I mean, man, the buys in the 3 range are looking really nice, of course, in hindsight. But I mean, it's definitely the lowest entry to the ecosystem. And I think if you're comfortable holding through a bit of volatility, it's definitely the lowest way to get access. And it's pretty clear that ApeCoin is going to be an important part of their ecosystem. So
Yeah.
long term, I think it's probably a fine buy.
Yeah, and you've seen more and more of these projects you're able to mint in Ape. The one today, Kingship, we probably won't talk about it too much, but I saw there was an option. It was like for 46 Ape. Was one of the options. I assume that number changes to balance with the ETH price over time, but this was one that I saw. You could buy an Ape. There's been a couple others that I've seen that option. So that's the thing, is like buying Ape, there's probably going to be a use for it at some point. It's almost like with Top Shot, they have like the trade tickets now. It's like, yeah, if you miss out on, and I'm thinking about it right now, I feel like I missed that drop today. But if you miss out on a drop with trade tickets, there's probably going to be another time that you'll be able to use it. So I feel like that's Ape as well, where even if the price goes down, like say you bought 100 Ape, there's probably going to be other times where you can just use the Ape. So that's kind of takes away a little of the downside risk with it. Might not be the best way to think of it, where it's like, oh, if the price goes down, you could just use it for something else. But a lot of coin prices have been up today, surprisingly, on a side note. But yeah, is there anything else with this Yuga going into the weekend that you've been thinking about?
No, I mean, I think we covered it. It's definitely the headline event this weekend. There's really not a whole lot else going on, new mint wise. So it's going to be a big event. And if there's a big announcement on Saturday during the demo, I mean, the Yuga Eco will take over the weekend and probably into next week.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see, because we have noticed that in general, where you can just sort of take over the market. And as Willis is mentioning, like It's pricey for a lot of people. Like, as I mentioned, right now, like Other Deed is probably the cheapest way to get involved, but there's not tons of upside. We've talked about that before. I think there's more from an ROI standpoint, more upside in buying ApeCoin for 3 ETH worth.
Mhm.
So we'll see how that goes. But I wanted to also talk about the other thing that's kind of been hot this week, topic wise, and probably into next week is art blocks. So we've been talking about art blocks for the last few weeks here. Like, this isn't all that new, but we talked about this drop, Running Moon. So it started at a 3 ETH Dutch auction. It's currently sitting around 4 ETH, and this happened on Wednesday. So what we had was it ended around 2.75 or so, I think. Not sure if that was just what the site said, or if anyone actually got in at that price. But let's just say right now, if you bought into that, you're still up at least 1 ETH on your purchase. So this one, only 500 count, is the first curated of the set, but there's also some other ones coming up. So now, like, what do you think off of this, now that we've seen the actual Running Moon mint happen and the volume after? What's your thoughts here on art blocks as a set? Because we were going a little back and forth on Monday, where depending on where the price ended, because we thought this price ended kind of high to hold up the floor long term, because a lot of these other curated floors are under 2. So do you think this is now going to become set that goes with some of these other ones that have been getting bought up recently? And how do you think this is going to move forward? I saw you had made a tweet about this a little bit. So what's your thoughts? Because recently factories have been hitting, but now this is the first curated to really hit in a little bit. So what's sort of your take about the art blocks ecosystem right now?
Yeah, I have a lot of takes, and there's going to be a lot of impacts from Wednesday's curated drop. So maybe let's start there, and then we can get into the other trends with factory and whatnot. So I spent a lot of time doing, game theory, thinking about the right entry price, because I knew I wanted to play the mint, and ultimately I came down to the decision that I was going to mint on the gun, and
Mhm.
based on the hype, based on factors around the project. So after seeing the outputs, the thought that went into it, the general community feedback early on was very positive. This didn't seem like a floor curated set. It felt much more like a mid-tier set. So I started looking at, market caps of the mid-tier curated collections. And when you factor in that a lot of them are 1,000 supply,
Yeah.
I put, the potential, fair market value for this set at 6 to 9 ETH floor price. And I still hold that target um, for this set.
So
So
because the 1000s were around this 3 to 4 ETH range.
yeah, so I think there are sets that are comparable, or I think Running Moon might be better, that are holding, a 3 to 4 ETH floor right now with 1,000 supply. So to me, that translates to 6 to 8 ETH for a 500 supply set. And market cap math isn't perfect, but I do think it matters. And especially as more of the supply gets into real collectors' hands versus the day one flippers, it matters more. So, like, do I think it's going to run to 6 to 8? Today, tomorrow, probably not. But let's check back in a few weeks, and I definitely won't be surprised. What I will be surprised is if this one goes below the effective mint cost of 3 ETH. So I think this was a very successful mint. All of the people who came just to flip, to scalp, they made some money. So they're going to come back. And the Art Blocks Discord, Block Talk was in disarray. It was in shambles yesterday. It was not a fun place to be. There was a lot of complaining.
Why not? Complaining that they missed out, or that
Complaining
it
about
meant
rent
it too high
seekers. And I think that group of collectors was just, they got so used to being able to mint whatever they wanted at, bottom prices.
for the past 6 months.
But the reality is, 3 ETH was clearly a fair price for this set. If anything, like, they should have adjusted the Dutch auction to start higher. But to me, it's hard to complain about because all the proceeds went to the artist, right? This minted out high, the artist got max payout pretty much. So I think that's a big win. Um, it was interesting. We saw the warning from one of the art box admins right before the mint saying, be careful of what you want to pay. Um, it's going to be volatile over the next few days, which is always, a sign. There's a lot of new names in Block Talk, and clearly that's the case. So a few impacts. We're going to see more and more attention on the next few drops, especially like the hyped ones. And this one, I don't really think this was heavily botted. I think a lot of new people showed up who haven't showed up for Art Blocks drops in a while. I know personally I've got friends who haven't minted in quite a long time who came out of the woodwork to mint this one.
Yeah, me too.
But the next one that gets botted, that's where it gets much worse. So if one person gets 100 or 200 of the supply and then sets the market, that's when people will refuse to buy and actually walk away. And that's when it can become a bad trade. So we definitely want to avoid that. One way to do it is to adjust these Dutch auctions, and I absolutely think they're going to start at higher price points than 3 ETH here for the next ones.
Yeah, so it's funny that you say that because there's a thread in one of the Discords I'm in where it basically we had to unarchive it this week because people wanted to talk about art blocks again. And I think that was another sign. You had mentioned it. Like when people come out and ask you about art blocks, and these are people that haven't asked you about it for months or ever, or people that are asking you. I've gotten a couple different people who came out and asked me like, oh, is there any of these art blocks under 1 ETH that look like a good buy? Or, oh, what's a good cheap curated to buy? And I don't want to call them normies, but once people that don't usually ask you about art blocks start asking you about it, that makes it so like in this, we were in a chat where I said basically I thought it was going to go too high for my liking. And it did. Like I didn't want to pay more than 2 ETH for an art blocks right now. But am I surprised that it went as high as it did? No, because there was a lot of demand. People have been talking about it. This has been like one of the hot sets art blocks have been for the past couple weeks now. So I'm not that surprised that it went that high, and I'm happy that it is above because that means people are going to be happy about art blocks again. And we saw it happen last year when people were happy and wanting to be in these art blocks. The one thing with this set that isn't as exciting is like the high end. There's not like a really easy way to know the difference of which ones are better than others. The top rarity ones, there hasn't been any double-digit sales, right?
Correct.
So that's the one thing with this set that I haven't been too bullish on. Even like looking at this page right now, like that red one looks like it might be a little different than others, but I don't really see any specific, like a lot of the art block set will have like a black and white or like grayscale type of art in there that usually go for more. I don't really see that with these. Not necessarily is that a bad thing, but I feel like a lot of the sets need those high end, desirable, indistinguishable. This is what it's from that specific set. Like Fidenzas at this point, I mean, granted, they've been kind of higher up, but Fidenzas, Ringers, like those, what they are. And I'm not sure if people will know Running Moon in the same way. Is that fair, you think?
Yeah, I think it's fair. I mean, it's definitely destined to be more of a mid-tier collection than a top end. With respect to the rarity, there's definitely not like extreme rares. Like here's 30 out of 500. What's been carrying a premium so far is color palettes. So like this one right here is I'm pretty confident is Lemonade. This is also a Lemonade palette. This one sold for 6. This one sold for 8. That's
like light blue, yellows kind of thing.
So one thing a lot of the serious collectors do is they like to match palettes across collections and kind of curate that way. So that's likely what we've seen. The top end sales play out so far on this one. 2x4, seems it's definitely decent, but it's not like one with like a crazy rare lotto. Like Sudfa had a better rare lotto because there was only 15 of the inverted ones, and thus those sold at like 3 to 5x the floor. So this one's probably never going to get there, but who knows? Once it'll be interesting to follow the price action on this one across the next 2 to 3 weeks, and I think that'll also inform the next curated drop as well. But maybe if we switch topics to some of the trends that's been going on. So Curated stole the show yesterday, right? 1,300 ETH volume, I think, in the first 24 hours. But the focus in the art blocks world and Block Talk has been on factory projects as of late, and specifically projects that are more in that 200 to 400 supply count. Where you can get more supply squeezes, things that minted out kind of during the art blocks bear or winter, whatever you want to call it. It didn't really have that much attention. Well, they're getting more attention now. They had low attractive entry points, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. So those are starting to move. It's actually a slower week for curateds other than the top of the board. Like Fidenzas and now ringers are starting to move. There was a nice 166 ETH ringer sale. And then the other factor, and we'll come back to this project, but a lot of the open projects, they're starting to mint out. I think 3 or 4 projects minted out just yesterday. Let's take a look at the open count right now. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 21. So down to 21. I think the last time we did the show, it was at like 27. So I think there's a good chance that this whole set of projects mints out again by the end of August, which happened last August. And we love to compare cycles, at least I do. There's a lot of comparisons to kind of what's happening right now to what was happening last summer. And some people were saying, "Oh, we topped." Right? There's so many top signals right now. I don't think so. I don't think that the Dutch auction on Wednesday was a top signal at all. Call me when NFTs are minting out for $20,000 on the gun for 1,000 supply sets, and then maybe that is the top of this cycle, but I don't think we're close to it yet.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought that was an interesting take. And if you guys don't already follow Tyler, he does have some threads like this where he'll break it down. So if you're interested in a little more detail or more regularly, but to me, like this previous curated, just art wise, made sense to me that it would succeed, because I think a lot of people who are interested in generative art like this kind of style versus when there's actual shapes, and that's a weird way to put it, but say like that one that's a sailboat that's on the screen right now. I feel like that type doesn't appeal to people the same way as like, oh, there's as if it's splatter on a painting, or these shapes that are in there versus actual, oh, that's an actual sailboat. That's not as cool. So it's like a weird way to word it, but the way that it looked to me, like past that eye test, that other people would like that who are interested in buying art blocks. So
yeah, I think you're spot on, right? And a big factor is the animated versus still, right? Like the still generative art commands a premium. For whatever reason,
you can actually hang it on your wall.
Exactly. Not that you can't hold animated pieces on your wall as well.
Now, yeah, these days.
But
so then, what do you think about? And we don't have to get too into it, but there's one coming up tomorrow that there's only the 19 count. I feel like we can just touch on it real quick. Do you expect this to go right away? It starts at 19.
So they changed it to 19 ETH now. So 319 Santiago. There's only 19 supply. I mean, it is absolutely going to be the focus of the Art Blocks community tomorrow when this thing mints out at noon Eastern.
People are going to be amped when this has a floor of like 30 tomorrow.
And honestly, like that is a real scenario.
Yeah,
it is. Like I'm not going to play this one. I don't have the ETH handy to really try to make a play at this. Um, it's hard to even predict what this is going to sell out at with just 19. I don't think it sells out at the top, but could it sell out at 10? Absolutely. I think my gut right now is in the 5 to 10 range. It'll probably go. People early chatter that I've seen, people seem to like it. I think it's harder to really get a sense of the set, with just 19 supply and some of the previews we've seen. But I don't think it's indicative of like really the market. I'm certainly it's a better time to launch now than it would have been 2 months ago. But I guess what I mean, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of takeaways necessarily for us as traders or collectors coming out of this one. It kind of feels like a one-off, unless I guess if it runs to a 34 or 44, then maybe it does impact everything.
If this one comes out and let's say it minted out at 19 and then fell to like a 10th floor, with only 19, it's really hard to look at the floor at all in general. Because realistically, how many of these are going to be listed at a given time? Like 5. So it would almost surprise me if someone's spending 19 on this. It would surprise me if they list for 10 that day. It's almost like you're buying it with the sense that I might just be holding this for a long time, and maybe the narrative is it's the smallest set in art blocks, and that becomes a narrative long term. I feel like the people that are going to want to buy this are less likely trying to flip it right away, unless they can get say like 30 plus for it. So that's where like I feel like it'll be that. I'm not sure if it's going to even sell out at 19. Like, that's going to be interesting as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to sell out at the top by any means.
But it could. That's what's crazy about it.
It could.
Once a couple of these sell, is it just going to run?
I agree.
There's
just not enough time. If you're planning on maybe minting and you see that ticker move up, you're just not going to have time.
Yeah. It'll be fun to watch. This is one that you want to watch. Get your popcorn ready. Get your
popcorn ready
at lunchtime ish. So this would be fun if there were a way to like live stream the blockchain in a way. It doesn't look as cool. It sounds cool in a sense, but if there is a way that you could like see, that'd be a cool app for someone to build, like visually watching, say like it's like a horse race, say it's like watching a Z race or something, but it's like
with the mints going through,
with the mints going for the blocks, and like based on you see like the number of gas that different people are putting in. That'd be, if someone could build out like a cool watching experience to a hyped mint like that, I could see that being like a Twitch streaming decent amount of people would be interested in watching. I've done before sitting in like a group voice chat during one of those, and someone's like, "Oh, gas is at 3,000. Oh, gas is now at 3,500," and people are just like saying stuff. But I think if you could have that visual experience, that could be cool too.
Yeah, for sure. Like NFT Nerds has something similar where, like, for pending buys, you can see all the people who are bidding and what GUI they've fired, and like they'll even like color code it, for who's in the lead right now. So something like that, it would definitely be fun. And we don't need to go too deep into it, but the set I'm more excited about is this project dropping on Monday, and we won't have time to preview it on Monday before Monday's show.
Yeah,
it's a playground project. It's called Latent Spirits from Robert Hodgin, his curated set is Ancient Courses of Fictional Rivers. The early output, so there's 6 samples, and I don't know. To me, maybe it's just personally, I think they look pretty cool, and we haven't really seen.
They look like those, what are those? The therapy ink blots.
Yeah,
that's what they kind of look like.
They do, and there is CryptoBlots is like the OG ink blot generative art, but this is like right? It is curated. It's in series 1. This is kind of like the alien version of that, or like maybe like the next version. It takes like 5 minutes for these things to fully reveal, so they are animated. It's only 400 supply. The Dutch auction starts at 1 ETH. Last Monday's factory drop had 2,000 pending on the gun. It sold out at 0.2.
Oh, 0.2, yeah.
We saw what happened on Wednesday's curated drop. This is only 400 supply. I think there could be a lot of attention on the gun. What's tilting about this is his curated set only holds a 0.5 ETH floor. So it's one of the floor curated projects. I've actually seen buys this week at 0.5. So if you think the playground should have a correlated price, maybe it shouldn't go above 0.5. But with that being said, we've seen some playground sets exceed curated by far. I'm butchering it. Ecumenopolis from Josh Bagley is one of the more notable examples. The Dreams was his curated set, held like a 1 or 2 ETH floor. Econs, as people call them, they ran to like a 20 ETH floor. And they've typically held a 3x multiplier off of his curated set. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is an outcome. But then the thing is, a lot of the scalpers, rent seekers who may show up to this may not even know that there is a curated project that's tied to this artist. So Monday's going to be a real wild card. I won't be surprised if it mints out the gun, but if it does mint out at 1, it might be a little bit riskier. You have to dip back under mint, but that's going to be an exciting one.
Yeah, and I see it says there. So Rorschach.
It does. Rorschach, the Rorschach test.
Yeah. So that is what they're kind of basing it off of in a way. And I think the other part that this is going to be a good test for is we don't really see playgrounds do all that well in general. This is somewhat of a heat check. This one, I think, will be in general if people are going, oh, it's just art blocks, and now if factory can do it, playground can do it. So I think that'll be part of it. I saw in there these 5 mints are going to go to people that held the previous the ancient one that Hudson had. So that'll be interesting as well. Is are people that were previously holders going to be interested in buying into this, especially if I'm guessing that was a raffle if only 5 of them are getting this, but showing that if you're part of his community, then previous works he gives back to. So that could also be a bullish sign to it. Yeah, we'll see on Monday when we're back here. We'll at that point either it'll already be minted or it might not be minted yet at that point. So yeah, this will be an interesting one to watch. It's the animals, spirit animal mood ring. That's kind of funny how they word it, but yeah. This is another one to watch. I know that you brought this up before about potentially being excited for. As I mentioned, I'm interested to see if it sells out. I don't think if it doesn't sell out, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because it is playground. But if it does sell out, I think that'll be a positive sign as well.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely sell out. I mean, the bottom price is 0.2. I'll bet it'll absolutely
people
go.
Are going
if it's 400. I wouldn't bet that it mints out the gun at 1, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happens either. This is another one. Once it gets to 50 or 100 mints, everyone's going to click that mint button because with the supply this low, it goes so fast.
Yeah, cool. And then let's talk a little about the 3AC. I don't know if you want to call it scandal, dilemma. I don't know the correct word potentially for it, but basically 3AC, they are going to have their NFTs liquidated, and it's a pretty wild set. Estimated, I think the Zapper had it at like 9,000 ETH, but with the CryptoPunks in there, with some of the Fidenzas, they have some one-of-one art, they have some rare stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if it's valued closer to like 20,000 even. I wrote down some stats from the wallet. There's 31 Fidenzas, 11 punks, 17 ringers. The ringers have a floor of around 60 right now, for reference. Punks around 80, Fidenzas 100, and then they have 14 of the Salo bots. I assumed they were going to have more of the Salo bots because I
Me too.
know VVD was super into this, but
Yeah.
I don't know if he like gave some away or whatever in the past. They have some of the pegs too, which were hot for a little bit. Just like general things as well. Other art blocks they had in there. They have some of the singularities, which are pretty cool, that have decent floras. They have those archetypes, bunch of stuff. So what I wanted to talk about was what's going to be the best way to get these out into the market to liquidate these, because I would expect whatever that valuation is, it's going to come out to lower. I don't know if they're going to get that ringer was like 1800 ETH, I want to say, that they bought it for. I don't know if you'd be able to get 1800 ETH for that right now. The punk, that zombie punk, we were just talking about it. That's the one that we were looking at that had a 2 ETH offer.
I don't think it's going that low.
No, but when we were just looking, like 1500, so maybe it'll go for only 1,000, which will be like a positive in ETH terms on that one. But what's sort of your thought here on maybe the best way for them to go about doing this? Is like raffles the way? Do people have to put up? I saw one that suggested maybe you put in 100 ETH and you raffle it, you get a random one of these. I saw something like that. What do you think potentially the best way to get these out into the public will be?
Yeah, the raffle system is interesting. I laughed, but so the Ape DAO that dissolved 3 months ago, they had like 100 Bored Ape NFTs. And they couldn't reach agreement on the token price, whatever. They decided to dissolve the DAO. A lot of people were worried it was going to tank the price of the Bored Ape floor, and it didn't because they handled the auctions very thoughtfully. And for the Bored Apes, they primarily did, I think, 1 or 2 sales per day. They had active community members like Dingaling bidding on a lot of them, so they would never go below a certain price threshold. So no one really got a steal for the most part from those auctions. They all went for pretty much fair price. And then I think when the mutants got involved, they did a raffle where you bought a raffle ticket for, like, let's say, the floor was 20 ETH. You bought a raffle ticket for 20 ETH, but then you had the rarity upside because they had some mutant apes which were above floor or had desirable traits. So that worked incredibly well for the Ape DAO. This is a little bit trickier because I think the Grail, we probably have to separate the Grails from more of their standard art blocks, and even, like, it's hard to even use the word standard. But, like, I mean, you can't just lump this ringer that they paid 1,800 ETH, into a normal auction or a raffle system, or really even their Fidenzas. I was looking through their Fidenza section set today. I mean, it's got to be the best in the world. And the counted as, well, if you had infinite money, you'd have the best set too. But, like,
That's a good way to think of it too.
Yeah, and they had infinite money.
Infinite money.
So I don't know how they're going to go about auctioning off all the top end stuff right now, because it definitely feels like they're not going to get the prices even close in US dollar terms. In ETH terms, could they come close? Maybe, but I mean, I think it's going to take time. It'll have to be done thoughtfully. You'll have to go after conversations with the top collectors and say, are you interested in coming at this? Like, how do you want this to play out? I mean, it's a meaningful conversation for the top end Fidenza owners, right? Who have an interest in,
because this is like, what's that, 3% of the collection.
Not only that, I mean, but probably like 30% of the top 10%. Like they have these micro Fidenzas. I mean, these are some of the most valuable in the set. A spiral fidenza right here. A spiral sold for $1 million, this year. So I think all the main owners are going to have a vested interest in seeing that these auctions go well.
Yeah.
But
The
man,
Cosmos.
I don't know how they're going to do
end
it.
up with 5 of these.
I don't think they can do it fast though. Like, that's the thing. Like, if somehow like a court made it happen fast, I think they'd be in real trouble.
In that sense, like, I don't know, does the court doing that benefit either side really?
No, so they'd probably be. They wouldn't go for that.
Would they be able to say, put this into a fund, and let's say they have to, or I don't know about have to, but say like they sell 1 or 2 fidenzas a month, and there's a monthly payment from the fund. Maybe there's like interest to it. Like, I'm sure there's ways they could do it like that, for getting repaid. But yeah, it's such a crazy amount, and it's gonna be fascinating to watch this play through. Like, no one's gonna come in and say, I'll buy the whole set for 10,000 ETH.
Right.
Maybe actually, I don't know. If we think that an alien punk could sell for like 8,000 ETH, then maybe someone would say, hey, if you need this done fast.
That's interesting.
That's a Web3 move, right? Like, let's pool funds together to do this. Like, fractional or something.
Was it Leshner who just paid $2,500 for the Ape? I mean, for the guys at the top who have these ETH bags. I mean, if you're willing to pay $2,500 on an Ape Punk, is that big of a stretch to pay, $2,500 for the full set of 31 fidenzas?
Yeah, right. Like,
so maybe there will be some package deals.
Because there could just be a few of those like the high-end fidenza collectors. Maybe there's 5 of them that say, we'll all pool in the money to buy them, and then they will separate it on their own, right? Let's say maybe we have a draft. That would be cool. Like, there's so many cool ways you could do it. I don't know if you saw was it 0xB1, how he was like connected to Celsius, how they were like a group, and they have a bunch of the Mega Mutants. And to me, I think it would be really cool because they made a whole spectacle of popping the mutant serum, right?
Yeah.
I think it could be cool if some group went in, had all these 30 fidenzas, and did a draft. It's draft season right now. Like, NFL's coming up in a month or 2 here, and
so
and
how would a draft work?
So whatever they get the group for, like say it's 3,000 ETH for
everyone
31
chips
fidenzas.
In. Okay.
So you buy in basically from there. The hardest part is determining order, because like the first one is obviously going to be better, but you'd have to do it as like a snake draft. But
snake.
There would have to be somewhere that can somewhat accurately value each of them, because I would think having like the top 3 of them are probably 2 to 3 times more priced. So maybe it's like a tier system where if you pay more into this draft, you could get more. I mean, I just think if they could figure something like that out, that would be just, the eyeballs on it would be crazy. Like, there'd be probably thousands of people that would be willing to watch that happen live if that was a thing. So maybe I'll send a DM to Cosmo, be like, hey,
I like the draft.
Fun idea.
Imagine a raffle too. Like, so your valuation, like, absolutely, they need current valuations on all of these.
Yeah, because some of them are definitely floors.
What if they took the weighted average of all the art blocks? Maybe we even took the fidenzas out of it, and maybe even the top riggers, and they took a weighted average of the floors, and then that was the raffle ticket price. So, like, let's say it came out to 20 ETH. You could buy a raffle ticket for 20. You had the upside of getting, this elite singularity or this great archetype or subscape, which might be worth 50. But then you had the downside of maybe getting this pigment, which is probably worth like 6 to 8 right now. That would be a real gamble, but I think a lot of people would show up for that.
And like the
as
other
well.
point I saw on Twitter with that strategy of a raffle system, they could potentially get more money out of this. Because if people are willing to buy in for a raffle ticket, there's about 300 something items in here. If all those people are willing to throw in 25 ETH or whatever, and you get 2 items, or however the math works out, right? Like, there's potential that they could set it up where whatever the value is that they think, they might be able to sell enough of these that it makes more than selling them individually and faster. And then you can just say, oh, you spent 150 ETH, so you could get this between the zombie punk and these 3 Fidenzas. Like, only 4 people put in 300 ETH or whatever that can get these ones. Like, there are probably ways that they could do it. What usually happens when we have crazy galaxy brain ideas like this, like, something way lamer is going to be how they go about doing it. But I think they could make it really cool, and they could make a spectacle out of it and flip it more into, I don't want to say a positive, but flip it more into like a community event. And trying to really show off like Fidenzas and punks. If you make it a little more into a spectacle versus just like sneakily, like those Ape DAO sales, you didn't even know they happened.
That's right.
Most of them. This one, I feel like you could make it into like a scene and people would watch because
let's use the Cosmos New York City Times Square. He loves putting his art up on Times Square. Let's get each of these bids, auctions, raffles. Let's do it live Times Square billboards. Let's put these things out in major space. So I don't know. I think we've had some good ideas here. I think we need to get on the phone with whoever is in charge of this.
So it would be cool. Yeah, maybe I just send Cosmo, hey, here's a list of ideas I have for you. See how that goes.
Let's do it.
All right. So is there anything else coming up this weekend that you want to talk about, or talk about most?
We hit on
one.
Yeah, there's a few. Maybe we'll just go quick around the horn on some news items. So G Money's Admit One had an announcement this morning. They're launching this 9DCCXYZ. It's a crypto native luxury house. So they're kind of creating their own luxury brand for clothing, apparel. It's only going to be available to the Admit One NFT holders out of the gate. I think they're launching with a T-shirt. So that's an interesting one. Actually, when I read this headline from Lucky Trader at first, I thought maybe it was like a Soho House type thing where only pass holders could go to this physical location, which I was kind of skeptical of because everyone's so across the world in this space. So the luxury brand makes a little bit more sense. It's a little more approachable. So this is an interesting one. I don't know that it's really going to move the market, but I think this is kind of our first announcement from this project in G Money. So
yeah,
at least they're working behind the scenes. I think there's going to be some expectations of a new project or a mint here soon for the 19th pass. But that was a big announcement. We had a big announcement from Proof. Let me see if I can scroll up for that one. I'll come back. Okay, here we are. So they just acquired the Divergence engineering team. It's the team behind a few different projects. They're actually tied into the G Money Admit One collection. From talking through to a few coders, this appears to be like a top tier engineering team. So this was a legit acquisition.
Yeah.
And it hasn't moved the market, but it's just one of those things that it reinforces the fact that Kevin Rose, Proof, like they're trying to be here for the long haul, right? They're trying to build a team out of like high caliber individuals,
right? And more than just like contract work, because I believe someone was telling me the original contract for Moonbirds was through Divergence, so they're just going back to them, but they're willing to acquire it, which means they're going to have connections with futures, maybe the Ravens, maybe whatever's going on with oddities they're doing stuff for. So I think it just shows, yes, like they want to be doing more stuff, and Divergence, they were happy with what they've seen so far, and they want to do more with them.
So He-Man's in the comments saying Proof News is bullish for me. I agree. I think it's hard not to be bullish on this as a holder. It's a longer term, outcome type of announcement, but I definitely feel good about it. Also, Kevin released a 20-minute clip from one of their team meetings this week. And in it, people grabbed some screenshots of their product roadmap. They skipped over a lot of it. Like some of it's kind of like scratched out, so you can't really see it. So not a whole lot of surprises, but Moonbirds 2 was on the list. So I think that's the new surprise that came out of it. In my head, it's like Doodles 2. Like Ravens is going to be, more of like a true companion, your MAYC type drop. And, we'll get into that later. Moonbirds 2, I think, will probably be how they launch into the masses, but who knows? It was interesting to see it.
This time next week, we'll probably have a lot more from Moonbirds. The Silver Nest earliest is Wednesday. If you put it in the first day, not sure if you did for any of yours, but I was like a week late. But they have that and Oddities on Wednesday. Oddities reveal is going to be very interesting to me. I personally didn't love the video because anything that I wanted to learn got blurred out, or just got, like, they specifically didn't tell you anything in the video. So I was like, I just wasted 20 minutes. No, but it was cool. The Ravens is a real thing. Like they showed not a lot of details, but him talking about it. There's a whole section on there for it. So it seems like they have a lot going on that is in the pipeline. The Divergence acquisition is probably something they've been working on recently. And so, yeah, like Dekunza said, like Proof is a real company now. And Kevin being likable, I think, is huge for it. That's one thing with Yuga that everyone early on was mad at Yuga because they didn't know anything about the owners. Now people go to Ape Fest, they meet, they put faces to the names, they're meeting people in person, they're getting these pictures with them, they're having conversations, they're saying, oh, like this person's likable, I've talked to them in person. It's just having the personal connection is a real thing in a lot of these cases. So
I mean, imagine just on that note, like imagine investing in Apple, right? Like you buy a bunch of Apple stock, and then once a year you get to go to a concert and take pictures with the CEO, right? Like it's just such a new concept, and it's fun and it's cool. And of course, it's more fun when your product is worth more. It's definitely a nice perk, and like the whole digital country club aspect plays out. And real quick, the kids are saying more stickers, question mark. I hope to God stickers aren't a part of this one. I've got enough stickers, Kevin. I've got like 50. My kids aren't playing with them anymore.
Oh no, I've been putting them around town. When I was at NFT NYC, I put them out a couple places, some
Guerrilla
subways.
marketing.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the point of it? That's what we're supposed to do. But now I have so many stickers from NFT NYC that I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? And I was thinking like maybe I just get like a canvas and just like collage them into something, but that's also kind of weird, lame. But I don't really know what am I supposed to do with these stickers. I got them from like every event I went to. I got like 4 stickers at, and then the Web3 party event with the one that was like women and NFTs. They all had a bunch of stickers. The Cryptoys, they had this like lunch pail that was just filled with stickers. So now I came home with so many stickers outside of the Moonbirds ones. But yeah, stickers are in. The other thing that's in right now, I was at yesterday, fanny packs are very in. The Lululemon Moonbirds fanny packs especially, but fanny packs are in right now. A lot of these projects are starting to give out fanny packs. So yeah, those fanny packs are hot right now in summer 2022. I was out at a bar and
For men or for women?
guys, girls, both.
Both. Wow.
It's the over the shoulder now is the look.
Okay.
You wear it over your shoulder. I think it was big in Euro and that trend like came over here, but yeah, I've been seeing them a lot more recently. So there's real world alpha for you. That
Woo, keep the
fanny
fashion
packs,
tips coming.
fanny packs and stickers apparently are in. So cool. Yeah. Well, the big thing this weekend is going to be Other Side. So look out for news and notes on that. If there's information, we'll obviously be covering that over at Lucky Trader. And yeah, besides that, like, I think next week's going to be a big week in general. And it's nice to see stuff trending. Crypto's trending up today, especially. But Yuga likely going to have some sort of bullish news, or at least that's what the holders are going to consider it bullish. And then Moonbirds as well next week. So a lot of cool stuff, I think, to look forward to. And we haven't really had a lot of cool stuff looking forward to for the past month or two. So I'm excited for next week that hopefully we get a little more positivity out there and maybe we'll see more punk sales, big punk sales. So
for sure.
Cool. Well, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you guys back here on Monday.